Hey, this is Eric, and this is a recording of a session I did for the 2021 Spark Educational Technology Conference. This session is titled Google Tools for Struggling Students, and it's all about tools to help support all learners, including text-to-speech, speech-to-text, readability, reading comprehension, audio support, and much more. I hope you enjoy the recording.
Welcome everybody to our session. Thank you so much for joining us at the 2021 Spark Education Technology Conference. We're so excited to have you with us here for the conference, and specifically, welcome to this session on Google Tools for Struggling Students. Now, for the benefit of all the attendees today, as with all the other sessions today, please do keep your microphone muted throughout the session, and we typically encourage you to also turn off your webcam. That typically helps with the bandwidth as we're all trying to stream all this together. But throughout the session, if you do have things to share, which I hope you do, we want you to participate. We're encouraging you to use the chat feature in Google Meet. So if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of Google Meet, well, I guess it depends. If you're on the phone, it might be somewhere different, but on the computer, bottom right-hand corner, there is a little chat button you can click, and that will let you into the chat feature. Please do ask questions, share resources. If there's tools that I mentioned that you've used and you want to share how you've used them with your students, that would be fantastic as well. If you do have a question, though, that you prefer to speak rather than type, what I would ask you to do is click on the little raise hand button. So at the bottom of the screen, there is the button that you can raise your hand, and that'll just let me know, hey, Eric, I have a specific question. And that's great. That's no problem at all. I'll call on you and you can unmute and we can chat. I certainly don't mind doing that at all. But for the most part, I'd say probably use the chat feature. And I will do my best to keep an eye on it. I've got it up on a screen next to me here. So as questions or comments come up, I will pause throughout the session and address those. This session is being recorded, so you can watch it again later if you need to, but more importantly, probably pass it on to some colleagues. And if it's something that you think they would benefit from, you can point them to the conference site. In the future, these videos should be available through October. That's our plan, is to have them on the conference site listed there, so you can keep on learning as the school year starts. I know things are crazy and busy, and this will give you a chance to go back to the site now and then and pick off another session that you weren't able to see, and you can get certificates of attendance for these as well. All of that is available on the conference website. But at this time, it is my pleasure to kick off this session. So let's go ahead and begin with just a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure everybody who wants to can get to the resources for this session. As I mentioned before, there's a bit.ly link that will get you there, bit.ly/Kurtz-struggle for Google Tools for Struggling Students. That'll get you to the document. For those that are in the Meet with me right now, I'll save you a little bit of time and I'll copy the direct link to that document and put it into the chat if that makes life a little bit easier for you getting into that document and getting it open. When you do get into that document, you'll see it's a pretty big one. It covers a wide range of tools to help support struggling learners. And this includes tools for text-to-speech, speech-to-text, readability, reading comprehension, audio support, behavior focus, organization, navigation, and more. There's also a section about halfway down that's Chromebook specific. Now, everything at the top also would work on a Chromebook. These are tools that would work on Mac, PC, Chromebook. They would work on pretty much any computer. But then about halfway down, I do have a section that is just specifically for, and a Chromebook, here's some things that are just built into it. So my plan for the session is pretty much to work through these categories here, text-to-speech, speech-to-text, etc., and pick a couple sample from each one, like, here's my 2 favorites, or here's my 3 favorites from a certain category. And then based upon how much time we have left as we get through that, I will also take a little bit of time at the end to pull up a Chromebook on the screen. I've got a Chromebook connected over here on the side, and I can show you, in addition to all of these wonderful tools you can use up here on your Chromebook, your Mac, and your PC, there's also some things just built right into the Chromebook in the accessibility features. And so I would like to demonstrate those at the end as well. Oh, I did see a question pop up. Andrew was saying, how will we get to the other videos later? So again, everything is on the conference website. So all you have to do is go to conference.apps.spark.org, same place where all the stuff is located, and you'll see we've got links to the live sessions and the pre-recorded sessions. So the pre-recorded sessions, they're already just sitting there waiting for you. You can go in and click on the video link next to any of those. There's about 70 pre-recorded sessions, so oh my gosh, so many things you can learn from all of those. That's phenomenal. And then the live sessions today, throughout the day, I've been replacing the Meet links with the recorded links. So like the sessions from earlier today, those have already got the links replaced. So like the Hipster Google session I did, you can watch the video there as well. The ones that are later in the day here, I haven't gotten to all of them yet because they're still getting done. So where it says join the live session, I just haven't had a chance to update those. I will get those updated later on this evening with the links that go to the recordings. But yeah, you'll be able to find everything there on the conference site. So thanks for asking about that clarification. I appreciate that. All right, guys, so that's the plan for our session here today. Again, bit.ly/Kurtz-struggle will get you to that agenda document. But other than that, let's dive in and start exploring. So like I mentioned, we're going to go through these categories. And the first one is text-to-speech. So we're going to start off with tools that would read things aloud for students. So text-to-speech tools. This can be wonderfully helpful for a student if it's a situation where they're unable to read. Obviously, that's great to have it read aloud to them, but it's also really valuable for a student who maybe is just still struggling with reading and being able to read something and also hear it at the same time to get that additional support. And as we go through this, I think we'll see a few more benefits to use this at all grade levels as well. So first of all, let's talk about what are some of my favorite text-to-speech tools that are out there, and then we'll dig into a couple of them. So this would include things like Read and Write for Google Chrome. That is a Chrome extension. There's Immersive Reader, which is also an extension. Then we have things like Read Aloud and Announceify. Now, those are just a couple of quick ones that I pulled into the slideshow. If you look in the agenda document, you'll see there's even more tools that would fall under the category of text-to-speech. Well, out of those, I would say my favorites are the first two, Read and Write for Google and Immersive Reader. Both of these are Chrome extensions, and we'll talk real briefly about what that means and how to install and use these, and they both help with text-to-speech. Now, I will say this also up front, everything I'm sharing today is free. These are all free tools. Some of them have a paid version, but what I'm showing you is all totally, completely free tools that you and your students can use immediately. A lot of these companies, they do have perhaps a paid version that has a few more bells and whistles, but the stuff we're looking at is the free things today. So let's start with our first one that I said was one of my favorites, which is Read and Write for Google. This is a pretty well-known tool. You might be familiar with it. If you are, please feel free to share how you have used it and how it's been beneficial for you. But like I mentioned, it's what's called a Chrome web extension. Now, you're probably very familiar with what extensions are, but if for any reason you're not, just a quick explanation, a Chrome extension is a tool that you can install from the Chrome Web Store. And when you do, it puts a teeny little icon way up in the top right-hand corner here where you can see I've got a whole bunch of them. There's Read and Write, and there's Mercury Reader and Google Dictionary. These are all little extensions up here in the top right-hand corner, and that's where they go when you install them. Now, I've already got them all pre-installed. If I show you something today and you're like, oh, that's cool, I think I'd like to try that. Well, no worries. In the agenda document next to each of the tools, you will see the link to install it. So if you decide Read and Write looks like a cool thing you want to try out, go to the agenda, click on the Chrome extension link next to it. That'll take you out to the Chrome Web Store, and that's where you could install it. Now, I've already got them installed, but you would get a button that says Add to Chrome. You could click on that, give it permission, and boom, there you go. You'll have that extension installed. So I've already got it installed. Let's talk about what it does. So the Read and Write tool, when you've got the extension installed, it will give you a drop-down or a floating menu, depending on the screen you're on. It'll give you this toolbar that has all of these really awesome tools on it. Well, we're focusing on is the text-to-speech features of it. So let me jump out to a website. This is Dogo News, just a kids current event article website. And let's say I'm scrolling down through here and decide, oh, I want to read about this prehistoric rhino that was taller than a giraffe. That sounds kind of cool. So I give a click on the article. And let's say I come in here and I want to read this article, but perhaps I would benefit from having some support, having some text-to-speech tool to support me in this. Well, if I've got Read and Write installed, all I do is go up and click on the Read and Write extension up in the top right corner, give it just a moment, and a floating toolbar will appear. At this point, I can move the toolbar around as I need, but what I want to do is I want to select some text. And then after selecting the text, I'm going to click on the play button. It's like the 5th button over there in the toolbar, and it will start reading it aloud. So I'm going to plug in my speakers so you can hear this. Every now and then I'll plug in and then unplug my speakers just to make sure the audio comes through okay. So let's hear how this sounds.
Modern-day rhinos, which weigh anywhere from 1,800 to 5,100 pounds, are no lightweights. However,
and there you go. Simple as that. Just highlighting some text and then giving a click on the play button will read that aloud. I love the way it highlights the words as it goes so you can follow along with it. Now, if you want to make some alterations to the voice, you can certainly do that as well. In that floating toolbar on the far right-hand side, you'll see a little 3 dots button there. If you give a click on that, you can get into the options. When you go into the options, that's where you can make those kind of adjustments. For example, there are loads and loads of voices you can choose from here. Male voices, female voices, different accents, different countries. So if I came in, I could switch from Samantha to Tom, for example. Although honestly, I usually like to pick like one of the UK voices because it just makes everything sound so much better. So sometimes I'll do that, but we'll just jump over to Tom here for a second. You can also adjust the speed, so I could slow it down or speed it up as need be. So if I'm on a website, any text I highlight, I can click the play button and boom, it'll read it. Now that's cool, but another thing I love about Read and Write is it also works inside of Google Documents. Not all of the text-to-speech tools do that. So let's say this is my George Washington report. It's obviously not a real report. I just copied and pasted this and made a few errors intentionally so that it looks kind of like a sample student report. But let's say that I have this Google Doc and I'm getting ready to turn it into my teacher. Well, another awesome thing to do with text-to-speech is to use it to self-edit your own writing. So what you can do is inside of a Google document, go up and give a click on Read and Write as before. The toolbar will drop down. And now if I come here and I click on the play button, we should hear this being read aloud to us. Let's hear that real quick.
George Washington were the first president of the United States. He was also the commander-in-chief of all American forces during the American Revolutionary War.
Now, something you'll notice there right away is it is reading it exactly the way I have typed it. So like the word commander, I misspelled it and intentionally, and of course it pronounced it a little bit strange as well. Well, that's the idea. It's awesome for students to hear their own writing read back to them, to catch mistakes, to hear something that doesn't sound right, because even when we read it to ourselves, our brain will fix things. Like we'll look right at an error, but our brain will fix it and we won't even see the fact that we put, the same word twice in a row or something like that. So using a tool like Read and Write, it's wonderful to have like a website read aloud for the support from that, but also great inside of a document to hear that read aloud to you as well. I did see a question pop up from Jessica. The question says, does each account need to have this installed individually, or can this be done by the tech people? That's a great question, Jessica. And the answer is yes, it can be done by your tech people. It's not something that has to be done by every single end user. So part of the Google Workspace suite of tools is the admin console that your tech people go into to set all the rules and all the policies for your Google Workspace. Well, one of the things they can do is they can push out extensions. So let's say you find a couple of these today that you think would be really beneficial for your students. The tech folks can go in and say, okay, all 5th grade students will get Read and Write and this and such, or even smaller groups, they can break it down however they want. In a case like that, as soon as the student logs into their Chromebook or logs into their Google account on a Mac or a PC, the extensions will they'll just automatically appear. They will not even have to install them. They will get force installed out to them. That's a pretty common thing for schools to do. Having said that, other schools do it different directions. Some of them will just take extensions and put them into an approved list and say students are only allowed to install extensions if they're on the approved list. In that case, they're just adding a bunch of them to this list that's approved, and then it's up for the students to install them themselves. Now, you as a teacher, you should not have any limitation on that. I I can't imagine coming across a school where they wouldn't let the teachers install the extensions to try them out and use them themselves. But for your students, yeah, that's usually the way that goes. Now, there's more to read and write than the text-to-speech, but that's the main gist behind what I wanted to show you with it. Yep, there's a lot of other buttons on here, but the text-to-speech, that's the real key one that it's mostly known for. As far as the other buttons on there, just as a little clarification, remember I told you everything I'm showing you today is free. The text-to-speech feature, that is free. A lot of these other buttons, though, they're part of the full version, the paid version of it. And so your students would not necessarily have these other buttons. They would be grayed out. They would have the play button for text-to-speech, and I believe the translate button. That one also is part of the free version. So if you go in and you pick a word, it'll translate it into the language of your choice from the settings there. The rest of these buttons, though, those are part of the paid version. Here's a cool thing, though. The company that does this tool, Read and Write, the company's called Text Help. They allow teachers to upgrade to the full version at no cost at all. So the reason I have all the buttons up here is because I filled out a form and said I'm an educator. So you guys can do the same. If you want to get all the buttons on there for yourself, install the extension first and then come back here to the agenda, and next to there you'll see the upgrade form for educators. Give a click on that, go out to the Text Help website, say, oh yeah, I want to use Read and Write. And then you just fill out this form that says, hey, this is where I work. I'm a teacher, I'm a librarian, I'm a tech person, whatever it is that you are. And within 24 hours, they will upgrade you to the full version with the extra buttons, which is awesome. It's nice to have those extra features. Yes, that is awesome, Heather. I agree. Yeah, Text Help is a great company. They're very supportive of schools. And there are some really neat other buttons up here as well. Just one I'll show you real quick, and then we got to move on. We got so many things to look at here today. I do like the vocab button that they have here, the vocab builder. What you do is you go in and you select words, and you use the highlighter tool to highlight them. So I'm just going to grab some random words. These are not necessarily ones that we would choose as vocab, because these are not difficult words. I'm just picking some as an example here. But after you highlight a couple of key vocab words, you can go up to the button that's the vocabulary builder button. And when you click that, what it does is it creates a new Google document to serve as a study guide for those vocab words. And it's going to pop open here in just a second. It just takes it a moment. And what it does is it gives you this Google document that has the word, it has a definition, it has any pictures for that word, and a spot for notes. So there's war, schools, and tree. Those are the words I picked. The point being, you could go through an article and you could do this. You could go through a document and do this, and you could create the study guide document and then push that out to your students. If you use Classroom or any other LMS tool, you could then share that document with them, and that would be really nice. Yeah. All right, well, we've got to look at other tools. This is not just going to be a read and write session. We got a lot of other things to look at. So as I mentioned, the other text-to-speech tool that's one of my favorites is Immersive Reader. Now, this is from Microsoft, but it works inside of Chrome as a Chrome extension. I've already got it installed, but if you want to try it out, the link is here in the agenda, as I mentioned before. So let me go ahead and try that one out now. I'll head back over to Dogo News, and I will select some text that I want to have read aloud. But what I do for Immersive Reader is I do a right click on the text. And when I do that, one of the things in the pop-up menus says, help me read this. That's the Immersive Reader menu. If I click help me read this, then Immersive Reader kicks in. And what it does is it grabs the text and puts it into a tab just by itself. So now I just get the raw text by itself. And at the bottom, there's a play button. So if I go down to the bottom and I click on the play button, we should hear it.
Modern day rhinos, which weigh anywhere from 1,800 to 5,100 pounds, are no lightweights.
Now, it doesn't have as many voices. It actually only has two. If you hit the little gear next to it, there's male and female, and there is a voice speed adjustment. But what I like about Immersive Reader, even though it doesn't have, it only has two voices, what I like about it is way up in the top right-hand corner, it has some extra features that are just part of Immersive Reader. So no extra, there's not like a paid version and a free version. This is just all available there. If you come up here, there's the text preferences you can click on, which allows you to increase or decrease spacing between the lines. You can adjust the text size. You can change the font. You can change the color scheme. Sometimes trying to read, black text on a white background can be difficult. And so there's some additional color options you can use here as well. Other cool things that Immersive Reader does, if you go on the top and you click on the grammar options, there's the option to turn on the syllable breaks. So as a student is reading through, they can see where the breaks are in the words for the syllables. You can also color code and label parts of speech. So this will let you see the nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs color coded and labeled. And then lastly, the final tab up in the top allows you to turn on the picture dictionary and the translation tool, so that if I come along and click on a word, now not every word will have a picture with it. So let me see, okay, mammals did, that's good. Let's see, massive did, awesome. How about elephants? I bet it does, yeah. So not every word has a picture, but if they do have a picture, that will be displayed there, as well as a pronunciation and a translation for that word. When I'm done, I can just click the exit button at the top and it sends me right back to where I came from. So heads up, those are a couple of neat text-to-speech tools. There are other things in this category. We are going to move on, though, to take a look at the other categories we're going to explore here. If there's something that I'm skipping over, though, that you're curious about, please let me know. Feel free to share any questions or comments in the chat. But as far as text-to-speech, I would definitely say Read and Write and Immersive Reader are two of my favorites. Good stuff. So let's go ahead and move on to our next category, which is going the other direction. So speech to text. In this case, what we want to do is we want to speak and have what we say get typed up for us. A lot of ways to do this, lots and lots of tools. Again, I'm just going to pick a couple of key examples out of this. The first one that I want to illustrate is Doc's voice typing. Now, Doc's voice typing does not need to be installed. It's just built in. It's not an extension. If you look in the agenda, you'll see it says built into Docs and Slides, and that is the case. It is just already there. So if I head over to my George Washington report, and let's say I want to type some more into the report here, but maybe I'm struggling with typing. It could be that I'm not the quickest typist, or it could be that I've injured my hand, or it could be that I'm not a great speller and I'm getting frustrated when I'm trying to type because I'm not sure how to spell the words. Any of those things could be really frustrating for a student, and they may have these wonderful ideas in their head, but by the time they get out of their fingers through typing, they've gotten frustrated and they've taken a long sentence and they've made it short. They've taken a big word and they've made it small because it's just too frustrating to try to type it all up. So instead, what we can do is go up to the Tools menu inside of Google Documents. In the Tools menu, about halfway down, you'll see a button that says Voice Typing. Go ahead and give a click on that, and that will open up a little microphone button over here on the side. All we have to do now is click the mic, and we can just start dictating to our document. Let's try it out. Now that I have clicked on the microphone, anything I say will automatically be typed into the document, period. This is an excellent way for students to take their ideas and get them from their head onto the page, period. Love it. Very good. Now, it may make a mistake here or there, and you may need to go in and fix it. But for the most part, the voice typing is really accurate at being able to pick up what the student is saying. Again, yeah, a quiet room helps, and speaking reasonably, clearly and slowly and so forth will help. But compared to not being able to type quickly and getting frustrated, this is a wonderful option for our students. Now, in addition to having it type up what you say, you may have noticed I mentioned some punctuation in there. I said period, for example. You are allowed to say punctuation as well as some other commands. If you're not sure what you're allowed to say, just hover above the microphone, and down in the bottom right corner below the mic, there's a little question mark icon. If you click that, that'll open up the help menu, and it tells you a lot more about like the punctuation you can say and all the different commands that you can use while you're using that tool. Heads up, you can also change the language you're speaking in. Above the microphone, there's a drop down where you can pick. If you're not speaking in English, you can pick a different language. You can even pick a different accent of English if the student speaks with an accent as well. All of that to help improve the speech to text dictation there. Now, this does work in Docs, and it also works in Slides. So if I open up a Google slideshow, I can do the same thing in Slides. Just come here and click on the Tools button and click on Voice Typing. The only difference in Slides is when you do it in Slides, it doesn't type it in the slide. it types it down in the speaker notes down below here. So let's just say this is my demo slide here, and I want to add maybe some text to it. Well, if I come here to my voice typing, which again I got to through the tools menu, and if I give a click on it, let's see what happens. Now that I have clicked on the microphone, anything I say will automatically be typed into the speaker notes section below the slide, period. And there it is down there. Now, what I can do, of course, is highlight that, copy it, come up here and paste it if I want. So I can certainly do that, but just be aware that's where that goes when you do voice typing on a slideshow. Now, that's great if you're in a document. That's great if you're in a slideshow. What if you're not? What if you're somewhere else? What if you're writing an email? What if you're trying to fill out a Google form quiz? Well, Doc's voice typing does not show up in those other tools. And so what I usually recommend for those is an extension called Voice in Voice Typing. So this one you would have to install. It is a Chrome extension, and the link is there. I've already got it installed, so let me just demonstrate it for you. Let's say I need to fill out this quiz. We'll pretend this is like a quiz that I'm taking. And when I come here to the form and I want to put in my answer, again, maybe I'm struggling with typing and I'd rather speak it. No problem. If I've got voice in voice typing installed, I should have a little microphone icon way up in the top right corner, and I do. There's my extension. There's my voice in voice typing extension. Just give it a click to start talking and then click again to stop. Let's try it out. Now that I have clicked on the microphone, anything I say will automatically be typed into the Google form, period. And there you go. Simple as that. This works, like I said, in pretty much any web form. So if I'm filling out, a form online or a search box, or even, like I said, writing a Gmail message, and I've used it for that. There have been times I've just clicked on that and just dictated to Gmail and let it type it up for me as well. Good stuff. All right. Let me put that back to the normal size there, and we'll close out of that one. Now, before we leave speech to text behind, one other thing I do want to mention is speech to text can also encompass what I would call live captions as well, where somebody is speaking and it types up like subtitles of what they're saying live. So heads up, Google does this in a couple of places. Google Slides and Google Meet, for example. So like right now in the Google Meet we're in, if you look at the bottom of the screen, there's a closed caption button down there. If you click that closed caption button, it'll start typing up what I'm saying right now. And that's great for students, again, to get that additional reinforcement, to hear something, but also be able to see it at the same time. Helps make that connection and helps with the comprehension. This also works, like I said, in Google Slides. So if I had a slideshow and I went to present it, all I'd have to do is go down to the bottom left-hand corner, click on the little 3 dots button in the bottom left corner, and there's the captions tool. I can toggle the captions on, and now anything I say will automatically be typed as subtitles or closed captions. In this case, they're appearing above the slideshow, but I can go down to that same 3 dots button, go back to the captions preferences, and I can switch this if I want it to be either top or bottom, and also the size of the text from small all the way up to extra large. And of course, I can toggle the captions back off again when I'm done using them. And there we go. Good stuff. So when it comes to speech to text, those are some of my favorite tools. Doc's voice typing if I'm in a document or a slideshow, voice in voice typing if I'm on some other sort of form or email, and then the live captions for when I'm in a Google Meet or presenting a slideshow. Let's pause there for a second. I saw a little bit of activity in the chat. Looks like we had a question. So this is back on Doc's voice typing, I believe. If you say you're speaking in another language, does it type it in that language or does it type it into English? Well, that's a good question because I think it may also depend upon, I think it will type it in another language. I was wondering if it would be affected by the language settings on the document. So don't forget, there is a setting under File. If you go to File and Language, you can set the language for the entire document, which is set to English. But let's just try it out. Let's pick French. I took 4 years of French in high school, but that was in the 80s. So I am not sure. I'll say, je m'appelle Eric. I'll say, my name is Eric. And I don't know. Let's see. If I put it in French, let's see what it does. Let's poke a stick at it and try it out. Je m'appelle Eric. Oh, I didn't hear the Eric part, but yes, it is. It's typing in French. So yes, I wasn't positive about that, but yes, it actually does type it in that language. It is listening for you to be speaking in that particular language. I'll switch back over to United States though for that. Cool. Good stuff, guys. Thanks for the question. I appreciate that. Well, hey, let's keep going. We got more stuff to look at, and our next category is readability. Now, what do I mean by that? What I'm talking about with readability would be any tool that makes it easier to read what's on a website. And this can mean a lot of things, from changing the color to changing the font to changing the line spacing. There's a lot of stuff that could fall into this category. And I've got quite a few of them that I've pulled together here in the document. I'm going to illustrate the first one. Let's look at Mercury Reader together. And as far as the rest of them go, I'll give you just a quick elevator pitch about what they do. And if you'd like to see one of them, I'm happy to demonstrate them. I've got them all installed, and so I can activate them if there's one that you are interested in and you would want to see that. But let's start with Mercury Reader. So Mercury Reader is a very nice extension that cleans up web pages by removing distracting elements so the students can just focus on what they need to read. When you install it, it looks like a little rocket ship icon, and you can see way up in the top right-hand corner, I've already got it installed. There's my little rocket ship up there. So the way this works is, let's head back over to Dogo News. Let's say I want to clean up this particular article. That's not bad. I mean, Dogo News is not a really, busy site, but it's got a few things. There's some ads on the side and some popular article links, and there's comments down at the bottom. So all I'd have to do is, from the Dogo News article, I would go up and click on the Mercury Reader icon. Looks like a little rocket ship. And when I click on that, it suddenly cleans up the page for me. Now I don't have any of the distracting elements. All I'm left with is just the core content, just the article text and the pictures or videos that are related to the article. I can go to the little gear in the top right, and I can change the theme from dark to light. I can change the font face, and I can change the font size as needed. When I'm all done, just click at the top to exit, and it will take me back out of Mercury Reader, and it will return me to the article again. So that's just one example of that kind of a readability tool that will clean up a web page for you. Some of the other ones in here, and again, I'll just give you the quick elevator pitch on these. There's things like alpha text, which can change font size and line spacing and the font face, as well as the background colors. Line height adjuster just changes the space between the lines. Helperbird does a whole bunch of things. It's got a free version and a paid version. But then there's things like Open Dyslexic and Dyslexia Friendly, which will change the font on the web pages to make it easier to read. Color overlay, this is a kind of a clever one. I don't know if you've ever had a situation where a student benefits by putting a color transparency on top of a piece of paper that they're reading. Well, this tries to mimic that by doing a color overlay on web pages. You can pick the color that you want, and if that helps students to read that better, that is a tool that could be beneficial for them. ATBAR does a similar thing that also includes a color overlay. Then you've got things like Magic Scroll Web Reader, which will take a long article and break it up into smaller chunks. It doesn't reduce the size of the article. It just puts it into more manageable pieces, like a flippable ebook that the student can just work through a piece at a time, rather than being overwhelmed by the entire article all at once. There's things like Readline, which lets you move one word at a time if you really want to be focused. Then there's things like Visor that will darken the page, except for a colored bar that you drag up and down to be able to focus on just the part that you're reading. High contrast will change colors again, which can be helpful. Then there's things like Color Enhancer. This is designed for partially colorblind users to find which color scheme is easiest for them to be able to identify, and then it will adjust adjust colors on your web pages to match that. So that's just a whole big batch of readability tools. Feel free to, in any one of those, all of them have the link. So if one of those sounds interesting to you, just click on the Chrome extension link next to it, and you can install those and take them for a spin. Or if you've got a question on them, let me know, and I will be happy to talk a little bit more about some of those. But in the meantime, we will keep on moving with our next category, which is reading comprehension. So the idea behind this is after you've read something, what can help us understand what we have read? What kind of tools can support that? A lot of things fall into this category as well. One of them is Google Dictionary. So Google Dictionary is an extension that allows you to simply double click on any word that you're unsure of. So if a student's reading along and they get to a word, they're like, I'm not really sure what that means. They just double click on it. It pops up with a pronunciation and a definition of it. So let's head back over to our prehistoric rhino article here. And, if I was reading through this, and I don't know what would be a good example here, but I'll just go ahead and click on like specimens, for example. If I didn't know what that word meant, I could double click on it and it will give me a pronunciation and then give me a dictionary definition below. So again, just an idea of a support, another way for a student to be able to figure out a word that they may not be aware of, or like here's, vertebra. If I don't know what that means, give it a double click and it's their backbone. Okay, now I understand. And even if they're not sure how to pronounce something, that's also nice to get that pronunciation there as well. The next category within reading comprehension are a couple of tools I pulled together that help with summarizations. So it's tools like Summary and Quillbot and Auto Highlight. And what these tools do is they'll take an article and then using AI, they will make a shorter summary version of it. Now, the idea behind this would not be to say, don't read the article. We still want the student to read the full article, but this allows them to get the gist of it as well. So maybe they would read the summary before they read the full article so that they understand, okay, here's what I'm going to be reading about, and it will give them that prior understanding before they head into it. So let me demonstrate a couple of these. Again, I would say Summary and Quillbot would be my two favorites in this batch. Let's take Quillbot for a spin on this one. So I'll head back over to my prehistoric rhino. Now this is not a very long article, so it probably doesn't really need a summary, but we'll go ahead and use this one for our example. I've got Quillbot installed, so I'll go up and give a click on Quillbot. And when that pops open, you'll see I have a couple of options. In the top left, I can be in paraphraser mode, grammar checker mode, or summarizing mode. We're going to do the summarization mode for this one. The paraphrasing and grammar checker, I cover those in a different session that I do on self-editing tools for students. But for this one, let's pull up the summarizer mode. And in this case, what it wants me to do is copy and paste the article into this box over here on the side. Now, I'm going to do that real quick. So we'll grab the first bit of the article, we'll grab the second bit, and we'll grab the third bit. I think it's just 3 different sections here. I don't believe there's anything else after that. That should be the extent of it. Looks like it is. And now I can click on the Summarize button at the bottom. What's going to happen now is it's going to try to condense all that together. And of course, I can adjust the length. I can come here and say, okay, I would like a little bit longer summary or an even longer summary. And each time I adjust that, it will re-summarize it for me. Again, this may not be the best example of an article because it's not very long to begin with, but what it will do is pull out some of the key items from that text. There's also the option to switch from paragraph mode into key sentences mode, which will give you more of a bullet point layout of what's the most important stuff in that article. So a tool like Quillbot can be really helpful, again, just to get that overall gist of the article that you are reading. The other one I said I enjoyed a lot was Summary. I think that one works really well too. Good stuff. All right. Well, while we're still in reading comprehension, I think the last thing I have in that category is just some links to some websites that provide articles at multiple lexile levels. You're probably familiar with Newsella. That's a pretty well-known one. But Tween Tribune, News and Levels, some of the other ones do this as well. And again, of course, this is all in your agenda here. If you haven't seen sites like this, I'll just open up Tween Tribune as an example. The idea being you'll get an article, and that same article is written in multiple reading levels. So in this case, there's a 750 Lexile level version of this, then a 950, a 1060, and in this case, an 1140. So all of your students can be reading the same article, but they can be reading it at a different reading level that's appropriate for them. All right, good stuff, guys. Next category we're going to take a look at is audio support. And again, let me know if you have questions. I know I'm moving kind of quick here, but I'm just trying to cover as much as I can in the time that we have, letting you know that all of these things can be found in the agenda. And if you joined us a little bit late, I'll throw the link to the agenda back in the chat there for you. You can always find it also at bit.ly/Kurtz-struggle. That's at the bottom of all the slides here as well, and probably at the top of the agenda too, I think. Nope, it's not, but that's what it is. That's the bit.ly link for that. So let's move on to our next category, which is audio support. Now, what do I mean by this? So what I'm talking about here is tools that allow you to record yourself, to record your voice, and put that into a document or a slideshow or a form to provide additional support for your students. And it could be that you're, recording feedback that you're giving them, or it could be that you're recording directions so that they can hear the directions read aloud in your voice. And that can be a lot more personal, but also just provide that additional audio support for the student. There's several tools that can be used for this. My favorite in the bunch is Mote. Now, there are other tools like Read and Write can do this as well, and Google Slides has a built-in audio tool as well, but Mote just makes it so much easier, I think, to do this all around. So that's the one I'm going to demonstrate for you here right now. So Mote, like all the other things we've mentioned, is an extension. You do need to install it. I do have the link for Mote in the agenda there. There's the Chrome Web Store link that will take you out to the Chrome Web Store to install that if you'd like to try it out. Now, what is Mote? So Mote allows you to record your voice, and the free version lets you record for up to 30 seconds at a time. That may sound kind of short, but it's really not. 30 seconds is plenty of time to share an idea with a student. And if you need more than 30 seconds, just make more recordings. You can just keep using it and adding more recordings in there. The paid version goes up to 90 seconds, I believe, per recording, and gives you some additional tools in there. But let me show you how Mote works just with the free version. I've already got it installed. So let's say I'm here in my George Washington report and I want to leave feedback for my student. But instead of just typing up the feedback, I'd like to give them a recording of me talking to them instead. Well, this is so simple to do now with Mote. All I do is come in and highlight some text, like for example, their misspelling of the word commander. And then I come over to the side and click on the regular old comment box. Nothing special here, just the regular button to add a comment. But instead of typing in a comment, I can click on the Mote button, the little Mote icon in that box, and I can give the students some feedback. So let's try that out. Watch out for spelling errors. And click comment. And as simple as that, boom, right there, I now have inside of my Google document a playable comment that has been recorded by Mote. Let's just hover above this and click on the play button. Watch out for spelling errors. And as simple as that, there we go. Isn't that awesome? Now, if the students don't have Mote, it will still work. It just looks a little different. Instead of getting the play button, they get a link, and they have to click the link. The link opens a new tab with the play button. So they'll still get the play button. They just have to click the link first, and then the tab opens, and then they can hit the play button. So I think it's great to have Mote installed for the students as well, because it's free for everybody. It's free for teachers, students, anybody. And so that would be one that a lot of times I would encourage pushing out to the students. That way, if you leave feedback, they can just play it right away. But they can also use it, because you could have them recording their own voice. This would be great for fluency practice, whether it's a student who's still learning to read, or if it's somebody who's learning a foreign language. Students could record themselves saying different sentences in a document, and then you would just go through and go click, 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 and you could play their recordings and hear what their recordings were of what they were saying. Now, It also works in other tools. It's not just a docs tool. So for example, if I go to Google Slides, I can drop audio right into a slide with Mote. All I do is come up and click on the Mote extension, click here, testing one. Whoops. Oh, I got logged out. That's okay. So I may have to sign back in, but yes, I can drop this right into my, we won't run through all that right now. I just hadn't used it on my slide recently, so I got logged out there for a second. That's fine. But I can do the same thing. I can just give a click here and I can drop audio right into a slideshow. And then also Google Forms. This is so neat. They added this recently in Mote that it supports Google Forms as well. So let's say you're giving a quiz and you want to have some audio in the quiz. Like, I don't know, let's say you're doing a spelling test. I know it's a really simple example, but that's a hard thing to do in a Google form. How do you do a spelling test? The students need to hear the word, but it's a form. How would they do that? Well, with Mote, you can do that. I could say something like spell the word, sorry about that, spell the word spoken below. And then I could click on the little Mote extension. Oops. Here we go. Click on the Mote extension. Dinosaur. Hit done, and boom, it records it for me. Now, here's the cool thing. When you go to take the quiz, that Mote recording will just show up as a play button there. And so the student could be coming along, taking the quiz and go, oh, spell the word spoken below. They click it and they get dinosaur. And now they can go ahead and type in their word. Or you can even have the students record themselves. If they've got Mote, they can click on the Mote extension because maybe this is a fluency test where you're asking them to, speak something in a different language. Well, they could just click on Mote, record themselves, and that recording will get submitted to you. Really neat extension. A lot of cool things you can do with it. Definitely wanted to get that one on your radar, though, as far as audio support goes. Good stuff. All right. A couple more things. Again, I do want to preserve a little bit of time to pull up my Chromebook and show you some things that are just built into Chromebooks. But let's hit just a couple more things that would fall into the overall category of Chromebooks, Macs, PCs, really anything. So I do have a category here called Behavior, Focus, and Organization, which I've just pulled together a bunch of tools that can help a student stay on task and stay organized and stay focused. So this would include things like Simple Blocker. This is an extension that you can add a list of distracting websites and then set a timer and say, okay, I need 30 minutes where I do not go to Reddit or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever it might be. And with Simple Blocker, when you turn that on with the timer, it'll block the sites that you've got in that block list. It can be a nice way to help focus, which is nice. Other tools in this category would include things like uBlock Origin, which is an ad blocking program, so you're not distracted by ads popping up on websites. Another neat one is Move It. Move It is for kids that need a physical break. They've been sitting too long and they need to move. So what you do is you install the extension and set a timer on it, like every half hour or whatever the case might be, and it'll pop up and tell them to do something physical, to get the wiggles out, to get that break that they might need. Google Keep is another wonderful tool for staying focused and organized. Google Keep is a website. Google Keep is an extension. Google Keep is a mobile app. It's all of those. It's Google's note-taking tool. So with Google Keep, students can, say they're writing a George Washington report. Well, while they're working on their report, anytime they come across a website that they need to hang on to, or a picture that they found, or a quote that's important, they can add it to Google Keep. Now they can do that through the Keep extension up in the top toolbar, or they can use their phone and use the app, the Keep app, or they can go straight to the website. Now, what I love about this is not only does Keep allow you to pull everything together in one place, but you can access it from Google Docs. So let's say I've pulled together a whole bunch of George Washington things over the last couple of weeks, and I've just been throwing them into Keep all along. Well, now when I go into Google Docs, if I look on the far right-hand side, I will see the icon for Google Keep. It looks like a little light bulb. I can click on that, and what do you know? There's all of the stuff I've been throwing into Google Keep. All of my notes and pictures and links, everything is inside of there. And I can even run a search if I need to narrow it down to find something specific. Anything that's in there now, I can copy and paste and put into my document, including pictures. So if I've thrown something into Keep, I could come here, click on the three dots and say, add to document, and boom, it'll drop it right into my document, including the link to reference where it came from. So Keep is a wonderful tool to stay organized with to-do lists and notes, anything that you need to keep in one place. A couple other things under focus. I do have a link to a bunch of websites that generate ambient audio. What I mean by that would be if a student is easily distracted by maybe siblings, or if they're in a study hall and it's noisy, there's a whole bunch of sites that I've got linked in the agenda that allow you to create a relaxing ambient sound. It could be like turning on rain and thunder and wind, or a campfire and crickets chirping, and each site has different ones to choose from, but it can create a nice environment that drowns out the other noises and could allow a student to focus. And the last thing I have in this category is Pear Deck. We could do a whole session just on Pear Deck. The real short of it is, if you're not familiar with it, Pear Deck is a free tool. There is a paid version, but again, everything I'm sharing here is free. It's a free tool that lets you add interactive elements to a slideshow. So if I'm giving a presentation to students, rather than it just being a one-way presentation, I can have multiple choice questions and drawing activities and drag and drop activities built right into the slideshow through Pear Deck. So while I'm presenting, the students can respond. They can type in answers. They can interact, and that allows them to stay focused, stay on task, and it allows me to collect formative data from them. All right. Now, we're getting close to the end, so I do want to switch over to my Chromebook real quick. I know we didn't hit every single link in the first half of this, but we tried to pick some of the biggest and best from this. If you do have any questions on any of the ones that we've seen so far, let me know. But what I'm going to do now is, let me pull this up real quick. It should be in my other tab here. Give me just a sec. Nope, that's not it. There it is. I found it. Okay, so this tab over here is actually my Chromebook through a Chrome Remote Desktop. So the Chromebook is sitting next to me, and I'm using a tool called Chrome Remote Desktop to pull my Chromebook onto my Windows computer here so we can see it. But what I want to do is just show you real quick that everything we've looked at already, absolutely all those things will run on a Chromebook. So for example, you can see on the Chromebook, there's, read and write at the top, and there's Mercury Reader, and there's all those extensions are all up there at the top. So that's great. You can use those, but you don't have to install those necessarily. You can check out first some of the built-in accessibility features in a Chromebook. And the way that works is if you go to the bottom right-hand corner, down where your clock is at, down here in the bottom right-hand corner, and you click on that, there'll be a little pop-up, and one of the things in the pop-up is an accessibility section. And if you give a click on the accessibility section, you'll get a drop-down with a whole bunch of accessibility tools. Now, these can be turned on automatically by your tech folks. So that's another thing. They can go into the admin console and they can enable these things automatically. Otherwise, the students can go in and turn these on as well. Now, if you don't see the accessibility button there in this pop-up menu, you may have to go into the gear icon above that to go into the full settings, and then scroll all the way down to advanced. And there you can turn on that switch that says always show accessibility options. And so I've got that turned on, so it just makes it easier for me to get to. I'm not going to run through every one of them. I want to just highlight a couple of the key things that are in here. So for example, one of the cool tools is Select to Speak. With Select to Speak, if I turn that on, now anything that I highlight on a web page, it can read it aloud, a lot like Read and Write or Immersive Reader. Same kind of thing. Not as many bells and whistles as those, but hey, it still works great. So if I came in here and said, hey, let's go find that article we've been looking at earlier, and then if I come down here and highlight some text that I want to have read aloud. With Select to Speak, all I have to do is press the search button on the Chromebook and the S key. So search S will do the speaking. You may not be able to hear it because the Chromebook's a little bit quieter and it's off to the side, but here, let me turn it up for a second and see if you can hear it.
Modern day rhinos, which weigh anywhere from 1,800 to 5,100 pounds, are no lightweights.
And again, I'm not positive if you heard that or not, if that came through, but that is the Select to Speak option that is just built into Chromebooks. You don't need to install anything. It's just right there and ready to go. Other accessibility tools here. There's one called Dictation, which guess what? Yep, it lets you dictate. So if I click on the dictation tool there, it puts a little microphone down at the bottom of the screen. Let's say I wanted to search. I come up here and I go, hey, I'm going to find some more articles about dinosaurs. I could click up in the search box here, but then come down to the bottom and click on the dictation icon, the little speaker icon down there, or excuse me, the microphone icon, and I could just speak to it. Dinosaurs. And there we go. It types in dinosaurs for me, and I can use that anytime I've got somewhere to type. I can just dictate to it instead. What other accessibility tools could I point out for you guys real quick? I'd say some other cool ones here would be like the magnifiers. There's a full screen magnifier and a docked magnifier. If I turn on the docked magnifier, you'll see what it does is it takes the bottom of the screen and magnifies it up at the top. So as I'm scrolling down, reading through this, I can see a magnified version above it. In addition to the docked magnifier, there is also a full screen magnifier here as well. Other cool things in the accessibility tools of a Chromebook include things like automatic clicks. If a student is having a hard time double clicking or left clicking or right clicking, if you turn this on, what it will do is if you pause above a link long enough, it'll click it for you. So for example, if I were to turn on automatic clicks, and then if I were to just like hover above like the Dogo News logo at the top, if I stay there long enough, it'll click on it and it'll actually then, take me to the Dogo News homepage. Or if I said, oh, I want to read this article about the Perseid meteor showers, if I just hover above it and just let my mouse sit there, it will then eventually click on that for me. Now you can adjust the speed. You can go into the settings and change the speed of that, but it's a nice way to be able to click if you're unable to press a mouse button, for example. Beyond that, there's lots of other ones. We won't go through everything here, but I'll just mention a few more. There's an on-screen keyboard that also includes a dictation tool in it as well, which is nice. There's the ability to turn on like large mouse cursors and to highlight your mouse cursor so you can see it moving around easier on the page as well. And finally, there's the sticky keys option down at the bottom, which again, if a student's having a hard time holding down, let's say the shift key while typing or pressing control with another key, if you do sticky keys, all you have to do is tap on the shift key twice and then it stays locked in, or tap on the control or the alt key twice and it locks it in, and then you can type with it locked in and then just touch the key again, tap it again, and it will then unsticky it. So just wanted you to know there are some really cool things built into the Chromebook as well, in addition to all of the tools that we looked at earlier that would work on a Chromebook, but would also work on like Macs and PCs and things like that. Well, guys, we are at the very end of our time, so I do need to wrap this up with a couple of key things. So first of all, I just want to remind you that everything we looked at in this session can be found at bit.ly/Kurtz-struggle. I update that document frequently because there's always new accessibility tools coming out. So I'd encourage you to bookmark that document or add it to your drive and come back and check on it occasionally. Also want to remind you that this session has been recorded. So if you want to pass this along to other people in the future, you can do that from the conference website, and remind you that you can get a certificate of attendance for each of the sessions. When you head back over to the conference website, underneath each of these sessions, like if we come down here to the one we just did on struggling students, you'll see there's a link that says certificate of completion, and you can click on that to fill out a form to get a certificate for the sessions that you have attended. Other than that, I just want to thank you guys so much for taking time out of of your day to kick off the school year with the Spark Conference, whether you joined us live or maybe you're listening to the recording in the future. Again, just appreciate you taking the time out for this. Hope you picked up some good ideas for tools that can help support our students. If you have any additional questions, I'm happy to hang around after I stop the recording, and I'll be happy to take any questions that you have. But again, thank you guys so much. It has been an absolute pleasure being with you here today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.